Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Today will be the first of 4 informational webinars from the NOAA Office of Education regarding our scholarship and internship programs. My name is Natasha White, and I, along with my colleague Amara Huddleston, welcome you and thank you for your interest in NOAA scholarships and internships. Both of us represent the NOAA Office of Education Educational Partnership Program with minority serving institutions, which you'll be learning a little bit more about today during the webinar. Before we get started with the information piece, I would like to share a little bit about my background because I myself was a former EPP MSI scholar, and EPP MSI stands for Educational Partnership Program with Minority Serving Institutions. So I was very fortunate to participate in a NOAA scholarship program during my graduate education at Florida A&M University. Following the completion of my graduate degree, in environmental sciences, I joined the NOAA's National Ocean Service as an environmental scientist. So for the first 12 years of my career, I was able to conduct research on the impacts of environmental contaminants on the health of marine organisms. That was some of the most rewarding work of my career thus far. But when I've always had a passion for education and working with future generations of scientists. So when I had the opportunity to transition from research to program management, I jumped at that opportunity, particularly because it lied with the program that brought me into the agency. So I'm particularly excited and passionate about the work that the EPPMSI program does, as well as all of the work that the Office of Education does here at NOAA. And I'm hopeful that some of you on the call today will become part of the NOAA family. So now on to give you a little bit of background about the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. NOAA's mission of science, service, and stewardship is embedded in our work, which spans from the bottom of the sea to the surface of the sun. Each day, our scientists and resource managers work to predict changes in climate and weather, oceans and coasts, and to share that information with the public to ensure their safety and to protect and restore marine resources, as well as to strengthen our economy. As a result of NOAA's vision for the future, that includes the healthy ecosystems, communities, and economies that are resilient in the face of change. So you'll learn once you become a NOAA scholar, you'll learn all about the agency's mission, the work we do, and how we do that work. So NOAA's work is accomplished through what we call our line offices. And each one of these line offices has an integral role in accomplishing NOAA's mission. A lot of the roles that each of these offices do does intersect. So you'll often hear the phrase one NOAA. That's because we each work together to accomplish that common goal, which is NOAA's mission. So we have first the National Ocean Service, who ensure the healthy oceans and resilient coastal communities throughout the United States and abroad. We have the National Marine Fisheries Service, who are responsible for the stewardship of the nation's oceans resources and their habitats. And we have NOAA Research, which is also the NOAA Office of Oceanic and Atmospheric Research. And that is the research foundation of the agency. So a lot of the funding for larger institutions of higher learning come out of that office, as well as oceanic and atmospheric research within the laboratories that that line office supports. Then we have the National Weather Service, which most people are commonly associated with NOAA because that's who's responsible for providing the weather forecast, climate data forecast, and the like to ensure that we have adequate warnings for the protection of life and property. And then we have the National Environmental Satellite Data and Information Service. Those are the satellite people. So those are, excuse me, the line office that collects the global environmental data, and they disseminate it not only through to the NOAA scientists, but to other federal agencies and private sector stakeholders as well. And finally, we have the Office of Marine and Aviation Operations, which is mission support essentially. So that would encompass the NOAA Corps, and they're responsible for the operation of the research vessels as well as the Hurricane Hunter planes. So if you become an EPP MSI Scholar or Hollings Scholarship Program Scholar, you will have the opportunity to conduct internships with one of these line offices. So that's an exciting opportunity that will provide an invaluable experience as you start to build your education and your portfolio. So this slide gives you an outline of some of the career fields at NOAA. This is an abbreviated list. Quite frankly, just about any major can be applicable to a career series here at NOAA, but we like to highlight these as these are probably some of the most common career fields that exist within the agencies and the types of career fields that students are most interested in. They include meteorologists, marine biologists. You guys can read, you can see there, they run the gamut of various STEM mission aligned disciplines. That's what these careers, that's what we will say here is called mission aligned. So now, the two undergraduate scholarships that we're going to be talking about today are the Educational Partnership Program with Minority Serving Institutions Undergraduate Scholarship Program, or the EPP MSI Undergraduate Scholarship Program, and the Ernest F. Hollings Undergraduate Scholarship Program. Both of these scholarship programs fall under NOAA's Office of Education, and while they are largely similar, they do have some key differences. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to discuss the benefits of each one of these scholarship programs and then highlight some of the key differences that exist among the two programs. So the EPP MSI Undergraduate Scholarship Program, which is the program that both Amara and I work with every day. So if you're selected to that program, you'd have to put up with us for the next 2 years. So the EPP MSI Undergraduate Scholarship Program does offer 2 paid summer internships. The first summer internship for the class of 2023, just FYI, would start in May of 2023. So the scholarship does also offer tuition support during your junior and senior year. You would receive 2 disbursements during your junior year and then 2 disbursements during your senior year. We also offer financial support for travel to 2 conferences as well as internship site visits. The 2 conferences can be taken within the same year, or one during your junior year, or one during your and one during your senior year. It's up to you, but you're offered, you're eligible for 2 conferences, support for 2 conferences while supported by the program. One of the most important things to understand about the EPP-MSI undergraduate scholarship program is that you must attend a minority serving institutions. So whether that be an HBCU, which is a historically Black college or university, a Hispanic serving university, a tribal college, your university has to have an MSI designation by the United States Department of Education. If you don't understand what that means, feel free to reach out to the program and we can provide some additional context. Or also you can reach out to your university to inquire about the MSI status of that university. And there are some specific details regarding excuse me, Hispanic serving institutions that we'll talk about a little bit later in the seminar. So eligibility requirements for the EPP MSI undergraduate scholarship program are listed here on the screen. Both US citizens or US nationals may apply. If you're not a US citizen, unfortunately, you would not qualify for a NOAA education scholarship, either this one or the other one, or any NOAA funded scholarship for that matter. You must be a second-year student in a 4-year program or a third-year student in a 5-year engineering program. That means that as of today, you're still sitting in your sophomore year. So in the fall of 2023, that will be the beginning of your junior year. Those are the students who are going to qualify for these 2 scholarships. You also must have a minimum 3.2 GPA on a 4.0 scale, and you must major in a NOAA mission STEM field. If you have questions about whether or not your major is applicable to these scholarships, feel free again to reach out to the programs. I will inform everyone that majors that have a focus on like medical science or English, history, those of the like, health, are not really going to qualify you for the scholarship because they are not NOAA mission aligned. But again, feel free to reach out to either program to ask questions about your major if you have questions in that regard. So now on to the Ernest F. Hollings Undergraduate Scholarship Program. This program offers one paid summer internship during the summer before your senior year. So if you're selected for the Hollings Scholarship Program, you would not have a summer internship this summer. Your summer internship would be in the summer of 2024. You will also receive tuition support during your junior and senior year. So that's 2 disbursements for junior and senior years. And they also offer travel support for 2 scientific conferences as well as for internship site visits. So once you decide on an internship, one of the good things about conducting a site visit, which they are not required but highly recommended, is you get to go and see where you're actually going to be living for 10 weeks during the summer. You can secure housing, you can meet your mentors, or just get a feel for the city where you're going to be going. So it's a good idea to take advantage of that internship site visit. Eligibility requirements, which are similar to what I described for the EPP MSI Undergraduate Scholarship Program. You must be a U.S. citizen to apply. So U.S. nationals do not qualify for the Ernest F. Hollings Scholarship. You must also be in your second year of a 4-year program or in your third year of a five-year engineering program. The minimum GPA for the Hollings Scholarship is 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, and you must also major in no admission STEM disciplines. The applications do close on January 31st, 2023. They open on Saturday, so you have lots of time to apply. And we're going to go into, of course, more detail about what that application actually looks like. So I wanted to give you an overview of the 2 scholarships first, and then we're going to get into some additional detail. So on this slide, I've described, I'm showing how the 2 scholarships differ. So they're highly similar in the financial package that's being offered, but there are some key differences that you all need to be aware of. The first one being for EPP MSI, again, is that you must attend that minority serving institution. Because this is a common application, when you apply for the EPP MSI scholarship, or conversely, if you apply first for the Hollings Undergraduate Scholarship, the same application may be submitted for both programs. That's only for those who attend minority serving institutions. If you do not attend a minority serving institution, but you meet all of the other criteria, you're going to be eligible to apply for the Hollings Scholarship. So again, there's a difference in the minimum GPA requirement. I will point out that most students who are selected for these highly competitive scholarships do have well above that 3.2 or 3.0 GPA. That doesn't mean that if you have a 3.2 or 3.0 that you will not be selected. It just means that, be aware that these are very competitive scholarships. So students who have 3.5 and above may be more likely to be selected, but that does not mean that we don't accept students who meet the minimum requirements. For EPP-MSI, another principal difference is that the students obtain, they receive 2 paid summer internships. As I mentioned, as students who are selected for the EPP-MSI scholarship, they'll be notified April 1st, attend a pre-orientation activity maybe 2 weeks later, and be expected to report to Silver Spring, Maryland by the 3rd week in May. So things happen pretty fast on the EPP-MSI side. So just making you aware of that, how fast that first summer internship is going to come up. Another difference is that education majors are allowed for the Hollings Undergraduate Scholarship. So if you're majoring in teacher education or any other STEM education discipline, then those majors are allowed for the Hollings Scholarship Program. EPP-MSI at this time does not allow education majors to apply for the undergraduate scholarship. The EPP-MSI Undergraduate Scholarship Program does have additional required activities during the junior and senior year. These we see as additional enrichment activities are for the students to continue to build their portfolio. So during your junior year, you will need to identify a mentor on your campus to guide you through a research project of your own that you will conceptualize yourself. During your senior year, you would be required to do 10 hours of public service within your local community that is aligned with NOAA's mission. So that's just a way to pay it forward and give back to your communities for all of the good deeds that you've gotten from NOAA. Again, the U.S. nationals may apply to EPP MSI, whereas they cannot apply to Hollings. And for the EPP MSI scholarship, an interview is required. So, and we'll talk more about that interview during my full description of the application process. If at any time anyone has any questions, feel free to put those questions in the question chat and we will address them at the end of this webinar. Excuse me. So you've heard all of the good information, all the benefits about these scholarship programs, so now you've decided to apply. What you see on the screen now is the landing page once you hit the application portal. Again, this is a common application for both programs. So once you enter all of your information, you won't have to enter it twice. There's a button that you would click if you start with the EPP MSI scholarship program that you want to also be considered for Hollings. Conversely, if you start with Hollings, at the end of your application, it'll ask you if you want to be considered for EPP. So as long as you have all of the information and your application is complete, you can be considered for both programs if you qualify for both programs. So this is the landing page. The first thing you all will need to do is to set up a user account. And this is how you're going to log in and come back and complete your application. It's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to complete your application in one setting. So that's why we have the password protected user accounts, not only for your security and the safety of your information, but so that you can return to the application as needed. Okay, so one of the first steps in completing the application is going to be entering your general information. So that's, with just about any application process, we need your basic information. Any item that's marked as required will have to be completed in order for you to move to the next step in the process. So you have to certify that, yes, you're a U.S. citizen, and you have to also certify, the field of study that you're studying and your degree program. If the first part of the application will help to determine your eligibility for applying to these scholarships. If you don't meet the qualifications, say for instance, if you're not a U.S. citizen, or if you click no, then it may kick you out because you're not eligible for the scholarship program. So you want to ensure that not only is the information truthful and accurate, but you're clicking on the right information as you go through the application. One of the key components that students that can render an application to being ineligible is the transcript. So you must submit official transcripts for each school that you've attended. So each higher education institution that you've attended must have an official transcript uploaded to the application. We are not accepting mailed mailed transcripts to support your applications. They must be uploaded into the system in order to be considered. So you will need to request the official transcripts from your institution, have it mailed or emailed to yourself, and then upload it to your application. Your application will be considered ineligible if the transcripts are not uploaded, number one, but if they are unofficial, number two. There's a note to the side here. I mentioned earlier about a specific criteria for Hispanic serving institutions. So the qualifications for Hispanic serving institutions change on a yearly basis, and they're based on enrollment. So if your institution is an HSI, you will be required to submit an official letter from the registrar, which says specifically that at the time of this application, your institution is a Hispanic serving institution as defined by the U.S. Department of Education. If you have any questions about how to obtain that letter, feel free to reach out to either of the program teams, and both of our information will be provided at the end of this presentation. On to the letters of reference, the fun part. So 2 letters of recommendation will be required for for this scholarship, and they do have very specific requirements. So I implore you to read very carefully the directions that are provided within the application. So at least one of those references must be an academic reference. An academic reference means it has to be a professor, a visiting professor, or a lecturer who has actually taught you. So that means that you would have been enrolled in their class for at least one semester, and this person can speak to your academic abilities. We will talk about some of the tips and tricks to writing a successful application during this seminar, but I want to ensure that you understand what the requirements are of who can recommend you before you get into, what they actually need to write. That second letter of recommendation can be from someone other than your professor, but it still needs to be someone who can speak to your abilities as they would relate to what you're writing about in your application. That means that they have to be able to speak on your academic abilities, whether it be somebody like an internship mentor or even a lab instructor, even though they have to have, the principal instructor co-sign on that. Someone who's definitely taught you, but they can speak about your abilities as it pertains to the content of this application. Then after you are prepared for your letters of reference, let me go back one thing. In order to submit the letters of reference while you're, and this is one of the first things that we recommend you go into the application to do. Once you identify the person who's going to recommend you, you need to go into the system, enter their name and their title, their relationship, how you know them, your professor, and enter their email address. The system is going to send your referencer, your recommender, an email request for your letter of recommendation. They will complete the web form and send it back through the system. You will be notified once your reference letters are completed and uploaded to your application. So you will not have to go to the person who's writing your letter, you will not have to go to them and ask them to give you anything physically. Just ensure that they're aware that that email is coming so that they can go into the system, complete it, and press submit by the deadline. And we do recommend that these letters of reference be submitted at least 1 week, which would be January 24th, 2023, before the close of the application period. So if your letters of reference are not submitted by the time this application is due, then your application will be incomplete and you will be ineligible. So it's imperative that if you know you're going to apply for this scholarship program, you go ahead and start thinking about who you'll ask to write your letter of reference. Okay, so the essay. You will be required to write about a 2 to 3 page essay in support of your application. And this essay is a self-description of your academic research, career goals as they are related to NOAA's mission, how your proposed course of study and or research will help you achieve these goals. So basically, we want to know who you are, what you like to what you're studying, and how that's relative to NOAA. If you don't know a whole lot about NOAA, then now's the time to go to NOAA.gov and learn all about the agency. If you're majoring in marine science or if you're majoring in meteorology, you need to identify the office within NOAA that's doing work that's of interest to you and learn all about the things that they're doing so that you can write in your essay how the work that you would like to do specifically might enhance the work that they do, or maybe you've had some experiences that are relative to the work that they do. You want to definitely tie your experiences to the work that NOAA's doing. It's very important that we understand what your goals are and how they're relevant to NOAA and how they're aligned with NOAA. So again, we'll talk about tips and tricks, but it's important that you have these facts within your essay to show that you've actually done your research. So the final step after you've had, after your letters of reference are there, after your essay is written, your official transcripts are uploaded, is going to be submitting that application. As you can see here at the bottom, please note once you submit your application, changes will not be allowed to be made. So ensure that once you click submit, you're confident in what you're submitting, because there's no going back. Will you see it's maybe hard to see, but you'll see the boxes that say yes and no. If you want to be considered for the other scholarship, that's where you would make that indication. There would be no further paperwork to complete. Everything that's in the application prior to this page will just go to both of the scholarship teams for evaluation. So once your application is submitted, and after January 31st, when all scholarship applications have been submitted, that will begin the review process. So this schematic kind of shows you what the application review can't talk. The application review flow is going to look like. So the first thing that happens is the NOAA Office of Education, both the EPP MSI team as well as the Hollings Scholarship team, conducts an initial administrative review for completeness. So we want to ensure that all of the application components are included, and we want to ensure that all of the requirements are met. If your application is considered as being complete and eligible, then you will move to the next stage of evaluation, which is the NOAA review. So scientists, resource managers, policy analysts throughout NOAA serve as reviewers for these scholarship applications. We get upwards of 800 scholarship applications every year. So as you can imagine, it's a pretty tough lift to get all of these, to coordinate all of these people to review your application. And each application is reviewed by 3 different individuals. So following the application review, the reviewers will return the reviewed applications back to us, and we have a scoring system that we use in-house to determine which students will be selected for the scholarships. So this is what the reviewers are looking for when they're looking at your application. The review criteria is the same for both scholarships. There's one additional component for the EPP MSI undergraduate scholarship, which is the interview, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So they want to ensure that you have relative coursework. So if in the first 2 years of your academic study, you should have taken at least some STEM courses. You can't have gym and music and underwater basket weaving as the principal courses that you've taken in the first 2 years of your academic study. So ensure that you have coursework that's relative to the major that you've stated. They're going to review your education plan and the statement of your career interests, as well as your recommendations and/or endorsement forms. I can't state this enough, and I'm sure Amara is going to cover it in her part, but please don't ask anyone who may not write a favorable letter of reference for you to provide a letter of reference. Find somebody else. The final 10 points for the evaluation of EPP MSI undergraduate scholarship candidates is a 15-minute interview, which I'll talk about in the next slide. So all candidates who make it favorably through the NOAA application review will be called for a 15-minute interview. And this is essentially a character interview. We want to get to know you and ask you some of the things that maybe weren't in your application. So we want to know who you are outside of those questions that you've answered. So it's no pressure. It's a no pressure, not high pressure interview at all. But it's just for us to get to know you and to make a final decision as to who will be the candidates for the class of 2023. And now I'm going to hand the reins over to my capable colleague, Amara, to give you some tips and tricks.
All right, thank you so much, Natasha. Let me just hop out of here. I'm sorry, I was answering questions while you were doing that. Okay, so a few application tips and tricks. So I'm gonna start off with covering, hopefully you can hear me okay, covering with some common application mistakes that we see. Excuse me, 1 second. There we go. All right. Yeah, so some common application mistakes that we see that you want to avoid because your application will be thrown out very quickly. So again, we won't stress it enough. We can't stress it enough, but submitting unofficial transcripts end up having your application thrown out. So again, you have to absolutely have the official transcripts uploaded when you submit your application. Ineligible references. So those are references that are either not submitted by the application deadline or references from high school teachers, coaches, family members, or friends. So again, Natasha covered this, but you absolutely want to make sure you have eligible references giving you recommendation letters, and then you want to make sure that they're submitting it on time. And we try to create a little bit of a buffer between when the reference letters are due and when the application is due. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, typically the reference letters are due about a week before the actual application, and that is to make sure that those reference letters are in the system and ready to go by the time you're ready to submit. Because again, if all of the sections are not complete, including your reference letters, you cannot submit your application. It will not be complete. And then, of course, last minute preparation is something you want to avoid, because again, if all of those sections aren't complete, you cannot submit it. And if you do something last minute, you ask for your reference letter at the last minute and your reference doesn't get it in time, you won't be able to submit. So those are really simple things that you can easily avoid so we don't have to throw your application out, because we don't want to do that. We want to read everybody's essay and consider everybody. So moving on to the next slide, please. Our next thing is choosing strong references. So Natasha covered who exactly is eligible to write you a reference letter, but you also want to take into account how well these people know you. You want to make sure they can articulate your strengths and skills. Choose somebody that you've worked with pretty closely, somebody with authority also. So it could be, again, it needs to be a professor, somebody you've worked with, professor or mentor, and not like a coworker or friend that you work with regularly. Those will absolutely be thrown out and not considered. And again, you want somebody that's going to be able to articulate your strengths and speak about you in a positive light in a recommendation letter. Can't stress that enough. If somebody's not going to positively recommend you, then you don't want to ask them to write you a recommendation letter. I always say ask somebody from your extracurriculars or job, so that even if for your second letter, at least, so that you have a bit of different perspectives. So we have more than 2 letters that are required, and one of them has to be from a professor, but maybe you want to get a different perspective. But again, those extracurriculars and jobs need to be something NOAA related. So it can't just be your job down at Trader Joe's bagging groceries, or if you have some sort of extracurricular activity that is not NOAA like STEM related, it won't quite translate well to this application or to this program. And then again, go for the people that work with you and that know you well over choosing like really big names. I like to stress that a lot. Sometimes people think big names will get them a nice, great, flashy letter and it'll make them look better. But if those people don't work with you on a daily basis, and I mean big names, say if you volunteer at an aquarium and you ask the director of the aquarium to write you a letter, that could be a really big name, somebody very important and upstanding that other people might know really well. However, if you don't work with that director of the aquarium every day, that's not somebody that you want to ask to write you a recommendation letter. 9 times out of 10, what they're going to do is have a nice generic template letter that they're going to fill your name in, and they're going to ask you to send them your resume and maybe some courses that you've taken. So send your transcript, and they're just going to fill in the blanks. And you don't want a letter like that. You want something genuine that really speaks to your strengths and your skills and interests. And what else do we have here? And again, I'll say it again. Please, no family members or friends or references. Yes, your grandma knows you very, very well, but probably not in a professional capacity unless you do work with your grandparents. But you don't want them to write you a letter, because this, again, you want them to reflect you in a professional and school and work environment. And then, yes, like I mentioned before, We do require 2 letters. One of those has to be from a professor. So again, for the second letter, you might want to consider asking somebody who can provide a different perspective. So your professor knows you in a classroom setting. They know you as a student, but maybe somebody else that you work with, again, bringing up the aquarium again, the whoever you work with at that aquarium will know you in a work status, so they can really talk about your work ethic outside of the classroom. Next slide, please. All right, so getting into some essay tips and exercises, or one exercise, not multiple. Um, so the essay is a really big part of this, and it can be rather daunting. So always, always, always start early and give yourself time to complete it, because you're going to need time to write it, to edit it, have other people read it, and then edit it some more before you think it's good enough to submit. So make sure you're starting early enough to do all of that and run through however many edits you're going to run through and not feel rushed and write a really nice essay. Always have somebody else read it and provide feedback. I usually say at least 2 pairs of eyes on your essay to give you feedback. You know, they'll be able to spot some grammar mistakes or maybe some things that you might be missing from the essay that you didn't realize. Sometimes when we spend so much time looking at the same thing, um, it's really hard to like realize any grammatical errors and things like that. So you can seek advice from a previous recipient to help you out with, well, one, they can help you understand the program a little bit more and from their perspective of being a recipient of the scholarship, but they can also help you give you tips about what to write about in your essay, give you advice about, you know, what to include, which brings me to the point that if you would like to reach out to a current scholar, please reach out to us. We'll share our email at the end of this presentation. But yes, please reach out to us because we have quite a few scholars who were happy to share their emails so that you all can reach out to them and talk to them and learn more. So our next thing is to be specific about your answer. So these last 3 bullet points, you want to be specific, you want to make it personal, and you want to tell your story. So those all kind of come together to make your full essay. But I always tell people that you don't want to write a sentence that other people can write. So you can write to me all you want to about how you just loved going to the beach when you grew up, or you always were so interested in weather. I cannot tell you how many of those sentences we have read in these essays. So you want to get specific about that. What about the beach drew you? What about weather? Get personal about it. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable to talk about it. A portion of the essay you want to talk about challenges and overcoming those challenges, and that is a point in time for you to be personal, be vulnerable, talk about that challenge, talk about how you overcame it, because we'll really see this as a strong applicant who doesn't let anything get in the way. You know, we all have unique situations that we've had and that make us the people that we are today, and we really want to see those in those essays. And then, of course, wrapping it all together, tell your story. You know, this essay is a chance to shine a light on yourself. I know that can feel really, really awkward sometimes to kind of talk yourself up and boost yourself up, but that's what this essay is for. Talk yourself up, tell your story to us, talk about the skills, your challenges, everything you've overcome, your goals, and how those relate to NOAA. Give it to all of us. Give all of it to us. So yes, that is my essay tips. And then a nice quick exercise that you can do just to get yourself started, because sometimes it's really hard just to get the first, you know, sentence or two out to get you started. Here's 3 things that you can do. You can write a sentence that talks about what sparked your interest in whatever you're interested in, whether it's marine biology, whether it's meteorology, atmospheric science, ecology, whatever. What sparked your interest in that? And if it needs to be more than one sentence so that you can go in a little bit more detail, do that. What are your future goals? What are those goals? Write those out. That'll help you write the essay and maybe help you kind of make a clearer vision for your future. And then how will the scholarship help you reach those goals? So that's just a fun little essay exercise that I like to give to people to help them get started so you don't end up like SpongeBob 1 hour into your essay with one word. So next slide, please. I want to highlight some of our awesome scholars, alumni and current alike. We want you to see yourself as an EPP MSI scholar. So next slide, please. So the first person I will highlight here is an EPP MSI alumni who was in the undergraduate scholarship program in 2003 and then in our graduate sciences program in 2005. Her name is Dr. Jamie Sims. She is awesome. So she has a background in meteorology and atmospheric sciences, and she really worked her way through NOAA. So she most recently was the former lead of National Weather Service modeling program, and just this year has now become the deputy director of the Northern Gulf Institute and strategic advisor for federal partnerships at Mississippi State University. So she's really awesome, and she's told us several times that her experience with EPP MSI has helped to shape her trajectory of her career and her educational endeavors. And then a more recent alumnus of the USP program recently completed her bachelor's in environmental science at the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Samaj Fielding. So Samaj came to our program and she did 2 different internships. Of course, her first one was National Marine Sanctuaries, another one with fisheries, and the one with fisheries was a little bit more policy focused, and she was able to use those 2 internship experiences to leverage opportunities with other programs like the Environmental Policy Innovation Center and the Citizen Science Association. And Samaj has just this fall started her law degree at Southern University Law Center. Very proud of her. Next slide, please. And 2 of our current scholars, which I'm so happy to highlight. One is Martin Gonzalez, who is in our recent class 2022. He's a junior at the University of California, Santa Cruz, majoring in marine biology. And this past summer, he conducted his first internship with Alaska Fisheries Science Center, tracking cephalopod distribution in Alaska. Very cool work. So I wanted to give you guys a little bit of the wet side of what our students do. And then on the dry side of things, we have Haley Poole in the class of 2022. Well, I guess it's not that dry because she's looking at freezing rain, but she's a junior at North Carolina A&T, majoring in atmospheric science. And this past summer, she did work with the Weather Forecasting Office out in Maine, looking at improving the prediction of freezing rain in New England. So we currently have about 30 undergraduate scholars that we're supporting, and these are just a few examples of those of these scholars that we support in the work that they do, which is very cool. So we'll finish out with the last slide here. So please absolutely reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Here are all of our emails, the EPP MSI USP program team email. We also included the Howling Scholarship team email, the NOAA Office of Education website, where you can learn more about not just our programs, but other student opportunities that we offer. And I will say that we put out some of the coolest stories. So please check out the NOAA Office of Education website. And then if you're learning more about how to apply, you can go to the USP website and the Hollings USP website to learn more. And that will wrap that up. Natasha, I'll give the mic back to you.
Thank you so much, Amara. We will open the floor for questions now. There is a question in the question chat, and I'm just going to answer it verbally. And the question is, do you have roles for people doing computer science, or do you need a double major minor in another STEM area? Absolutely not. Computer science is a STEM field, and it's definitely one of those majors that qualify for both of the scholarships. And there are a number of opportunities for modelers or just people who are interested in IT and computer science in general here at NOAA. So we highly encourage you to apply. Other questions? And if anyone would like to come off mute and ask their question verbally, feel free to do so. Next question, would the same apply to engineering majors? Not exactly sure what the same is referring to, but engineering majors do qualify for both the EPP MSI and the Howling Scholarship. The only engineering discipline that would not qualify would be biomedical engineering. Additional questions? You're welcome. Oh, no, you would not have to double major in STEM. We welcome all disciplines of engineering aside from biomedical. Any more questions? I want to say that I heard community college students, most definitely. So if you're attending a community college and you will transition to a 4-year university next year, you are eligible to apply. If for the example of EPP MSI, your community college would need to be a minority serving institution as well as the institution that you are going to transfer to. For Hollings, as long as you're transferring to an accredited institution and you meet all of the other requirements, it would be perfectly fine. Just for EPP MSI, it has to be, both of those institutions have to be minority serving institutions. Next question. For the references, can both of them be alternate references, or does one have to come from a professor or TA that taught you? One reference must be from a professor that has taught you. A TA may recommend you, but they have to have the cosign of the professor who is the person who is the professor of that particular course. So it's very important that one of those people recommending you is a professor who's taught you. For I've already transitioned to a 4-year this semester. Would I still qualify? As long as you are in the second year of your 4-year program, you would still qualify. So if I'm not really I don't know the full story of your transfer from the community college to the 4-year institution. As long as you're still in your second year, that wouldn't matter.
Hello, Natasha.
Yes, Sandy.
Just a couple of things. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sandy Sarvis, manager of the Hollings program. Some excellent tips here. Just wanted to add a couple things. The conferences that are program funded cannot be any international conference. It must be national conferences. We do not fund international travel. As Natasha and Amar mentioned about the references, these are key. And a couple quick things. The references you should check. While you will be notified through the application portal. So it is up to the applicant to check to make sure that your references are in. A lot of applicants wait until the last minute. Do not wait, because if a person does not respond to you and you're nearing that closing time, get another one. Remove that one and seek someone else out, because that can hold your application and put you in the back. And if you don't have those, you cannot submit. And the last thing is Eastern time. It closes 11:59, January 31st, Eastern time. You can't imagine, we get over 50 applicants who say their computer broke. They didn't know it was Eastern time. 11:59 Eastern time. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandy. I was looking for your name to call on you to see if you had any comments, but thank you so much. Lucy has her hand up. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
No, I just had a basic questions just to make sure. I guess in terms of, you cannot submit until everything is in, correct? Like the application, the
Correct.
recommendation has to be in before you can submit.
Correct. So you want to make sure that everything is there before you submit your application, because you won't be able to go back and make any changes. So if you're waiting for a recommendation to come in and it hasn't come in, but you're able to identify somebody else, I would not recommend submitting because that person would not be able to receive notification from the system. So you want to make sure that that reference is there before you click submit. Leanne. You're on mute if you're speaking. I can't unmute you. Okay. So we have other questions that have come in. Let's see. We have students who transfer to our programs who credit-wise are junior, but with respect to the program, they are the sophomore level, meaning they have 2 years to go. Can they apply? Yes, they can. And I'm going to ask my colleague Sandy Sarvis from Hollings to come back on, please, to address this issue. When students have, for instance, those AP credits that render them as higher status, but they still have 2 years in their education program.
As long as they are sophomore students, but their credits show more, or AP credits that put them at the junior or senior level, we do not accept AP credits. What we will need is a letter from your institution on university letterhead from your academic advisor or registrar, along with your official transcript that says you are a second-year student in a 4-year program, even though you have 100 credits. As long as you are in your second year, you are eligible, and upload that letter with your official transcript. Gosh, we cannot say official 115 times because over 50 applications get excluded because they don't have official transcripts. Do not print it from the National Clearinghouse. It must be from the registrar.
Thank you, Sandy.
You're welcome.
Okay, if you're participating in a 5-year combined bachelor's and master's program, are you still able to apply your sophomore year? So the master's portion of your program would not be taken into consideration. You must be a second-year student in that case. So the 3rd year in a 5-year engineering program, that's leading to a bachelor's degree, not a combined bachelor's master's degree. So you have to be a second-year student. So that means in the fall of 2023, you should be going to your junior year. If that does not clear up that question, feel free to send us an email and we can discuss it further. Does the student applicant collect all the recommendation letters and attach with his or her application materials? So the recommendation letters will be sent through the application portal. Once you get to that page where it's speaking about the letters of reference, you will enter the person's name, their title, how you know them, as well as their email address, and then that email will be sent through the system. Communication, all of the information from the application, I'm sorry, the letter of recommendation will come back through the system, so the student will not be required to collect that information individually. It will come through the system. Next question. My professor hasn't taught me, but she is my lab mentor right now. Does she count? So she could count as one of your alternative references to, that would not count as your academic reference. Recall from that slide I showed you that the academic reference must be of a professor who has taught you. So another person could be your lab mentor. That could be your second reference. Next question. So a rising sophomore is ineligible, correct? A student must be currently identified and enrolled as a sophomore, not one who is a freshman today, correct? So if you're a freshman today, then you would be applying to the class of 2024. So come back next September, October when the application opens and then submit the application. So right now we're looking for students who are currently in their sophomore year, so rising juniors. How many awards total? EPP MSI typically accepts about 15 students. Amara's eyes got big. About 15 students per year, whereas Hollings may accept about 125, give or take. All of these scholarship awards are dependent on our government budgets.
I see a hand raised for Lucy.
That might have been from earlier, unless she has
Yes.
another question. Okay.
No, I have another question. I just wanted to make sure that, I don't know if you ever encountered, if a student is in a, like a 5-year automatic co-op program, does that interfere with that, or would that interfere?
And Sandy, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm leaning on Sandy because Sandy's been doing this longer than I have. But if the student is in the second year of the program, which means that they're going to have junior status at the beginning of the scholarship, then they will qualify. You only receive 2 years of support, so the student will continue their that final year of that program without support from this scholarship. So the scholarship only offers 2 years of support.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Any further questions?
Natasha, if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
we keep saying letters of reference, but actually when you hit that button to send to your referee, it is actually a form where the person has to enter how they knew you, and also any other information, and leave their contact. If a TA completes that form, there is no space to put the actual professor. So somewhere in that form, the professor's name and contact information must be inserted. Must be, or otherwise the TA referee form will not be accepted in the review process. Thanks, Natasha.
Thank you. Any final questions? We have about 2 minutes remaining. Okay, I want to thank everyone for attending and taking time out of your day to learn more about NOAA scholarships. This session was recorded and will be available on our website by the end of the week. Amara is going to post the last 2 polls that we had set for the session. So if you'll please answer those polls for us. We will also be hosting 3 more of these informational webinars. The information will be the same, and perhaps with some additional information based on the questions that we received today. We will enhance the presentation. So if you'd like to hear it all over again, we will be sending communications about additional sessions to learn more about NOAA scholarships. Also, if for any reason you're a professor or you're a student and you don't qualify for either EPP, MSI, or the Hollings Scholarship, please visit the NOAA Office of Education Student Opportunities page. That website has a list of available scholarship and internship programs throughout NOAA. The application process for some of those is open now, so I encourage you to visit that now. These 2 scholarships are the only scholarships at NOAA that offer financial support during the academic year, but the other programs do offer pretty attractive summer internship program, which they do have stipend and financial support attached. So please visit our website for more information and feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Thanks again to everyone for your time today.